Joining us now on set, Blaine Fowler. He's here for After Further Review tonight. But before he takes on that challenge, how about this, Blaine? What's the toughest game left on BYU's schedule? We've talked about the next three. We think the next three are like the crucial stretch. What do you think?
Well, if Virginia plays the way they played last week against Louisville, it's a very tough game. Now, I think it's good for BYU that they're at home. Utah State, if they can get Chucky back, it looks like he's going to sit out this week, and then they have a chance for a bye, so they have a chance for him to get healthy. If he's healthy, I don't know that he's been healthy all year, though. When I've watched Chucky earlier in the season,
his whole career now.
Yeah, he just
as a freshman.
He just hasn't looked right this year. He hasn't had confidence to go full speed. And if Chucky can't run around and make plays with his feet, then he's not Chucky Keaton. He's not going to kill you as a straight drop back guy. And so that game without Chucky isn't quite as tough. I still think that Central Florida, because of matchups on the road, so you're going to go back to the East Coast to Orlando, actually to the Southeast, if you think about it. That's a long trip. They have a lot of team speed, and there's still a lot of talent left on that team from a team that was a really good football team last year. They don't have Bortles, but so to me, I think it builds, and I think that Central Florida game is probably going to be the toughest. I think Virginia is maybe the best team they're going to play, but it's going to be here in Provo.
But it's at home.
And I think Virginia's still trying to find themselves offensively. So I think defensively, it's a very good football team.
Will BYU face a better defense than Virginia's this year?
No, I think Virginia's the best defense they're going to see. And they've got tremendous team speed. They're experienced in the secondary. Harris at strong safety is a beast, just a great player. Their outside linebackers can really, really run. I was watching, is it Vallis or Valls?
Vallis, I think.
He's number 88, so he looks like a wide receiver, but he reminds me of Alani Fua because he's 6'5", and he's 240 pounds. He runs tremendously well out in space. He comes off the edge and pass rushes. He gets in the throwing lanes. He was a hassle for Louisville last week. And this is a Louisville team that's pretty confident offensively. They've been really good. They held them to under 300 yards. That's the best job anybody's done against Louisville in a couple of years defensively. And so
how about that?
As I watched that, they shut down a team that is confident offensively. And I thought, okay, so here's the best test for BYU defensively so far this season and maybe all season long. Now, I don't think Virginia knows who they are offensively. They
don't even know who their quarterback is.
Lambert played the most, and he threw for 162 yards against Louisville, and he looked solid. But all they're doing with their quarterbacks is having them be game managers. I mean, that's it.
Seriously.
Yeah, and
simple throws.
Yeah, and they don't have a 100-yard per game rusher. They're not consistent offensively, and I think BYU's defense is really good. And so I think they're going to have a hard time moving the football. The big key to this game for BYU is to make sure that they don't turn the football over, because that's what Virginia's been this year. If there's one thing that's the hallmark of this team, they've forced turnovers. They've forced 13 turnovers this year, number one in the country in 3 games.
Against Louisville.
Yeah, and so that's how they've made a living. Their offense hasn't had to be great because they've had a bunch of short fields. And so that's the key for BYU is they take care of the football, and then I think they win this game going away. If they allow this tepid at best, mediocre Virginia offense to get short fields and get some points, then all of a sudden this is a ball game. So to me, I know turnover margin is always big, but it's even bigger in this game because Virginia is very good defensively because they have a reputation already for forcing turnovers. And I think it's the only chance Virginia has because their offense just isn't good enough to move the ball on a consistent basis.
Let's ask you our Twitter question. If BYU gets to 6-0, they win the next 3 that we've been talking about. Then what?
Then, they're already in the national conversation. So, and when I came in, I heard you guys talking about, the New Year's Day. It's not New Year's Day, but the New Year's 6th.
Yeah.
So then I think they go undefeated and they get in the New Year's 6 this year. And it doesn't matter that there's one less spot open next year, because next year, if they get Taysom Hill back and everybody back and have the kind of experience, then they start out the season as a top 10 team possibly.
Whoa.
And if, or at least a top 12 team if everybody's back. And if they start out the season, I think if they go undefeated and then there's no question that Taysom and Jamal and everybody's coming back, that they start out at least as a top 12 team. And start out as a top 12 team, and with the schedule they play in September, let's just say if they can go undefeated through the end of next September.
Oh, it's on.
Then they're a top 14.
That's the toughest September.
And then you don't worry about the New Year's 6. You worry about playing into the Final Four.
You could actually get into the playoff with that schedule. And a year that's the perfect scenario for BYU.
Yeah,
go undefeated.
Because I don't think I think it would be very difficult. Everything would have to align perfectly for
Yes.
BYU to get into the Final Four this year. But I do think that if they go undefeated, I believe they'll be in the New Year's Six. I believe that. And there's no question they should, because where they're at now, and you look at the power rankings and who they're going to play, and teams are going to beat each other up in conferences. The Big Ten is down this year. Not a great league this year. The Big 12 is top-heavy this year. The ACC is good, but maybe a little top-heavy. The Pac-12 maybe is not as good as we thought they were, in the first couple of weeks. As we saw this last week. But I think the fact that the Big Ten's down, they're not going to get a couple of teams in. The Pac-12 we thought could get 2 teams in. I'm not so sure about that. The SEC could get 2 teams in. For sure they'll get 2 teams in.
They'll always have the one.
They're the only league this year that's living up to its preseason billing. The SEC is as good as they've ever been, and the ACC is probably kind of holding level. But I think the Big Ten is way down, and the Big 12 is way top-heavy. I mean, Oklahoma's terrific, but they're in a class all by themselves in that league.
Baylor, you think is good. You're
Oklahoma
not sure how
State.
Yeah, I think there's a big step down.
Arkansas.
I watched Oklahoma last Saturday, and I'm going, how do they get that many fast guys there? I mean, that team is so fast. It's ridiculous. And that league doesn't have a lot of speed this year, and so they look like an SEC team playing in the Big 12. So I think Oklahoma's going to come out on top there. But I absolutely, if BYU's undefeated, I expect them, and they will be in that New Year's Six, and that sets the table for an unbelievable September next year. And if they come out of that thing undefeated, now you can start talking about playing for a national championship.
And look, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
We're allowed to talk about that, right?
But I do.
Coaches can't, but we can.
So okay, next year, let's say BYU goes 11-1, 12-1, whatever. They just have a couple of losses. At Nebraska, they're down. Boise State, beatable.
At home.
At UCLA, no
Beatable.
Brett Hundley anymore. At Michigan, Utah will prove that Michigan's maybe not as good as.
Yeah, I think Utah. I think Utah's a really good chance. Utah has a really good chance to beat Michigan on the road this week.
Yes.
Michigan's a good team defensively. They're a lot like Virginia. They're a good team defensively, but they don't know what they're doing on offense. They're very average offensively. The number 1 defense in the Big Ten right now, which isn't saying much. But
Did you hear Gary Patterson's quote about, hey,
What do you know about your offense, Coach? And he said, well, we've played Samford and a Big Ten team, so I don't know.
It was Minnesota.
Yeah. Who knows? Although Stanford's really good defensively.
Samford.
Oh, Samford.
Yeah, Samford.
I'm like, they didn't play Stanford?
No, Samford.
That would be a different
difference.
story. Stanford is a big-time defensive football team. Samford and a Big Ten team, you didn't even mention them. Oh, my goodness. That's a slap, isn't it? That's a big-time slap.
Blaine Fowler with us on BYU Sports Nation. You can catch him on After Further Review tonight. Blaine, we only have a little bit of time left, but on Saturday, what do you think you'll see from BYU that will be better than they did against Houston?
I think they'll be more consistent offensively. I really believe that going back to the East Coast and playing at UConn and then flying back home and trying to get things put back together, flying back to Austin and playing in a huge game, and then coming back and don't practice on Sunday, so you really only have 2 prep days, and now you're playing at home on a Thursday night. When they went to step on the gas pedal when they should have to separate themselves, there wasn't any gas, and it wasn't just physically; it's mental gas too. They just didn't. They just didn't do it, and they had a lapse there and allowed Houston to climb back in the ballgame. BYU's a 21-point better team than Houston is. They're 21 points better than Houston, but that wasn't what the score was. But I think with 9 days of preparation and playing at home and Virginia flying, they'll be ready to go. They'll be much more consistent offensively, and I think when they go to step on the gas, all those will still be some gas in the tank.